Today we are going to be making pumpkin muffins with a streusel topping. When I was a kid growing up, my mom made all kinds of pumpkin things in the fall. We had pumpkin bread, pumpkin muffins, pumpkin pancakes, pumpkin waffles, and of course, pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving. What I didn't know though was none of our delicious pumpkin foods growing up were made with pumpkin. Instead, she made them with something called banana squash. Banana squash, when I think about it, it made a lot of sense because we were a family of 10 kids, lived on a small farm, and if we didn't grow it, we didn't have it to eat for the most part. So it was our chickens, our cows, and our fruit orchard as well as our vegetable garden that fed our family of 10 kids. So if you're growing something, you want to get a large yield for what you grow. And a pumpkin, let's face it, especially a sugar pumpkin that you're going to use for making all of those delicious pumpkin goodies, is small. Whereas a banana squash can be up to 3 feet long. I think some of ours were really longer. That would be about 1 meter long, and as many as 25 kilos, 50 some pounds. So when they were growing something for our 10 kids, of course they were going to pick something that was pretty much just as delicious as a sugar pumpkin, but it gave them 50 pounds of product rather than maybe 3 pounds of pumpkin. So let's get baking and make our pumpkin streusel muffins. But make sure you watch all the way to the end because you aren't going to want to miss my neuronutrition nugget. I'm going to tell you a secret that science has discovered, a way for us to actually change our gene expression in our body and in our brain to upregulate our genes for a healthier brain, as well as upregulate them to regenerate brain cells that may have been lost, destroyed, or damaged as a result of the stress, anxiety, or possibly even environmental toxins that are in our life. So let's get baking and bake some pumpkin streusel muffins. So we're going to start by making our pecan streusel topping for our muffins. To make our pecan streusel topping, we're going to start with 1.5 cups of pecans, and to that I'm adding, I like a lot of streusel topping. That to me is what really makes the muffins delicious. My mom didn't used to put the streusel topping on it. That's something that I've added because I love a nice streusel topping on top of my muffins. So to our 1.5 cups of pecans, we are adding 1.25 cups of brown sugar and 1/2 cup of butter, as well as a teaspoon and a half of pumpkin pie spice. If you don't have pumpkin pie spice, you can make your own pumpkin pie spice with a bunch of different things like cinnamon, cloves, ginger, and if you scroll down to the links below, there's a link to this recipe on my website where you can learn how to make your own pumpkin pie spice. So I'm going to stir this all up and grab it up here. And go ahead and add our butter to it. This is 1/2 cup of melted butter. It takes a little bit to get the butter all kind of stirred into the streusel topping. And I almost forgot to add the flour, 1/3 cup of flour. The flour helps it, gives it some of that crumbly texture to your streusel topping. So we're going to stir that all together here. And we've got a lot of nice topping here. Looks like it may be too much, but this recipe, if you're making it, it makes like 12 large muffins, or I make about 21, maybe sometimes even 22 small muffins. So by the time we get this all divided between all 22 of those muffins, it gives just a nice amount of streusel topping on each of the muffins. So once it's all mixed up, we're gonna go ahead and set that aside, and we're gonna mix up our pumpkin muffins. For today's simplest smart tip, if you don't bake a lot, make sure that you check all of the out dates on your spices. If your spices have expired, you're essentially adding dust or something that's flavorless to whatever your baked goods are. And if you're going to go through all that work of adding a spice or a seasoning, you want to make sure that it is fresh and tastes delicious. In addition to that, if your baking soda and baking powder have expired, they are not going to help give that lift or that rise to your baked goods that you want. What I've found works for me is that come about this time of year, right around that fall holiday baking season, I just throw out my baking powder, my baking soda, and any of my spices that are getting close to expiring, and purchase new ones so that my holiday baking isn't a disappointment because I had a seasoning, a spice, or a leavening product that had expired. So I purchased brand new ones come about this time of year. So to the flour, we're gonna add 2 teaspoons of baking powder and a half a teaspoon of baking soda. In addition to that, we are also going to be adding a I just kind of estimate the half teaspoon, a half a teaspoon of salt, and a tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice. I go through a lot of pumpkin pie spice, so I make my own pumpkin pie spice. If you want to make this vegan, this is a great recipe that you can easily adapt to make it vegan. All you would need to do really is substitute vegan butter for the butter in the recipe. Just get the sticks of vegan butter and a plant-based egg substitute for the 2 eggs that are in the recipe. The rest of it doesn't have any dairy products, and it's a couple of simple substitutions, and you have a delicious vegan pecan streusel muffins. So we're going to set that aside and go ahead and mix up our muffins. So I'm starting here with a cup of packed brown sugar that I've put in my mixing bowl. And to the brown sugar, I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of butter. A lot of times the pumpkin recipe that my mom used for making pumpkin bread and pumpkin muffins was this recipe, but she would use margarine instead of butter in it. We had cows, and the extra milk that we got, we would separate it into cream, and then she would quite often turn that cream into butter, and we would sell the butter in addition to any extra milk or extra eggs that we had to then get some money, some additional money and some additional funds for our family. So we rarely had butter that we got to enjoy. Any butter that my mom made was pretty much always sold and used to generate some extra money. So we had margarine, and we also used a lot of vegetable oil in our recipes. You can use either a stand mixer or a hand mixer to mix the dough and to cream. What I just did there was I just creamed together the butter and the sugar, and now I'm adding 2 eggs to that creamed butter sugar mixture. And we're going to go ahead and beat in the eggs. I usually like to scrape down the edges of my bowl and then beat it just a little bit more before I add the next ingredient. And then next we're going to go ahead and add 1 cup of pumpkin puree. I make my own pumpkin puree from the sugar pumpkins that we grow. However, most people don't grow sugar pumpkins, so you're going to probably purchase pumpkin puree. If you're purchasing pumpkin puree, make sure you purchase the solid pack pumpkin, not the pumpkin pie filling. The pumpkin pie filling has sugar and a lot of extra spices that you don't want in your muffins, and it'll also, I'm not sure what it would do. Your muffins aren't going to turn out good, put it that way. So purchase the solid pack pumpkin, and if you grow sugar pumpkins and want to learn how to make your own pumpkin puree, there's also a link down below that you can scroll down to and click on how to and make pumpkin puree. So we're going to mix that in. And you'll see it may have curdled a little bit, not a problem. It's not going to affect the end product at all. I'm going to go ahead and scrape down the edges of that bowl one more time before we add the flour to our mixture. And I add the flour all at once. After you add the flour though, you don't want to over mix your batter. So just mix it on like low or medium low until it's just mixed in. I'm going to give it a quick let's get this out of the way and give it a quick scrape down of the edges. We still got a little bit of white flour that I'm seeing here in it. So we're going to make sure that I get that all mixed in. Mix it a little bit more with a beater. 50 degrees. And added some muffin tin liners to my muffin pans, so they would be ready to go. I'm going to just go ahead and get these aside, and we'll bring over our muffin tins and get them filled up. What I'm using here today to fill the muffin tins is a cookie dough scoop or a muffin or a cupcake batter scoop. This is a 3.4 tablespoon scoop that we're going to be using. And I just go ahead and fill each one of these. I don't like to fill them super full because I want to make sure I have plenty of room for all of that delicious streusel topping that we made at the beginning here. So I level that scoop off rather than kind of letting it heap up. And we have that one filled, and we'll see how many we're going to be able to fill on this other one here. If you like really large muffins, then you're going to want to use the large muffin tin. I like a smaller muffin with lots of streusel. So I like to use the smaller muffin tins. You can still make a large muffin also with lots of streusel. And it looks like we're going to have 19, 20, about 21 out, the last of the... So there you have it. We've got all 21 of our muffin tins filled. And now we're going to go ahead and put some streusel topping on them. mix it kind of up a little bit, and I use my fingers to put streusel topping on it. You can use a spoon, but I a lot of times use my fingers for things like tasks like this. And just kind of mound up that streusel topping on top of them. A lot of times I'll start with what looks like about the right amount, and then if I have more, I'll go back and add additional streusel topping to the muffins. And I'll also go ahead and once I get the streusel topping all added, a lot of times I'll go back and kind of press it down into the batter so that it stays kind of pretty much attached to the muffin as the muffin bakes. These muffins are also delicious without the streusel topping, so if you want to make them a little healthier, go ahead and make them without the streusel topping. However, even though the streusel topping does have some butter and sugar in it, it's brown sugar and it has a lot of nuts, and the pecans add fiber to your diet, which is really good for your brain as well, and really good for your body, and also, interestingly enough, it's also really good for your brain. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of press the streusel topping into these muffins now that I have it split between the muffins. That way as they bake, the topping won't end up falling off of the muffins. Don't want to lose any of that delicious good topping. And it's time to get them into the oven. We're going to be baking them at 350 degrees we're going to check them at 25 minutes. And sometimes they're done around 25 minutes. If not, I've never had them need to go longer than 30 minutes. Pumpkin pecan streusel muffins are cooking, we're going to talk about our neuronutrition nugget. Actually, when I was thinking about it, if you don't have a pumpkin, you can also use a butternut squash if you want. You could roast it up, puree it, and use that in place of pumpkin. It's delicious. And you might have to remove some of the extra moisture from it because the butternut squash can be a little moister than your pumpkin puree. But that's another alternative if you don't have pumpkin and you have a nice butternut squash like this one here. It makes a delicious butternut squash muffin. Same thing for many of your other pumpkin recipes. You can substitute a butternut squash and use it. It's a little different flavor, but not a lot. So let's talk about neuronutrition of a pumpkin or even a butternut squash. They both are high in fiber, and fiber is one of those things that helps keep our gut healthy. Our gut makes about 80% of the serotonin in our body. Serotonin is that substance that is a natural mood elevator, and in fact, in antidepressants, serotonin is what is in a lot of the antidepressants to help with depression. So having a healthy gut, keeping it healthy by having a high fiber diet is a great way to elevate your mood. And in addition to that, serotonin is also important for helping us sleep at night. The other reason that it's important to have a healthy gut is that there was some studies done recently that looked at the correlation between cognitive decline and not having enough fiber in our diet. When we put fiber in our diet and have a high fiber diet, in other words, we have a diet that consists primarily of whole grains, fruits, and vegetables, and limits our fats, sugars, and also our alcohol intake when we have a high fiber diet. What this study showed was that when we have adequate fiber in our diet and have a healthy gut, that healthy gut communicates with our brain and actually changes our gene expression in our brain and in our body to upregulate our gene expression for improved neural health, as well as it can upregulate the gene expression for something called neurogenesis. It improves neuroplasticity and neurogenesis, which is the production of new brain cells to replace brain cells that may have been destroyed as a result of stress, anxiety, or other things in our life and in our environment. So eating a diet high in fiber is important for keeping our body as well as our brain healthy, and especially for that healthy gut. There we have it, our pumpkin streusel muffins, fresh out of the oven and delicious. Our muffins are done and they've cooled a little bit, which is why I can pick them up. They smell heavenly, and in fact, Farmer Fred and I just had one with our afternoon coffee. It was delicious. Thank you for watching and also for subscribing to my channel. Please make sure you hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our delicious recipes, budget-friendly tips, as well as some interesting, fascinating, and informative insights into the neuroscience behind the food that we eat and how we can use neuroscience to help us figure out what foods are best for our brain as well as our body. Your subscription helps my team and me reach one of our goals, which is to get 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year. For more information, as well as the full recipe and neuronutrition and simple as smart insights, go to my website at 𝗬𝗲𝗃𝐻.com. The link is down below. Let's dive into the world of cooking, baking, gardening, and all the flavor that comes with all of them. See you next week on the Dr. Jonette channel.